All right, Benji and Brady, welcome back into another episode of the Higher Up Podcast. We are continuing our series on the sayings and teachings that your dad had with the two of you guys before y'all took over. Things you heard during your childhood, things you heard here, and things that we as staff have heard probably a million times.
And things we can never forget.
Yes. Look,
Yeah.
I have used today's phrase several times. Brady has told it to me 100 times when I get to where I'm talking way too much about a subject, and you're like, stop. This is what I need you to do. And so,
I'm not mean about it though, right?
No, you're not mean about it. So, but it is
If I am, you can tell me.
It is good. I think today will be great for listeners. I think this is important because it's kind of something with people, especially in the position that you guys are in. You'll have 1,000 things you're doing. And sometimes you'll be like, hey, I need you to do this so I can do these other things. So, Benji, I know this is something that you brought up on the list of ideas that, Brady, you told me we have about 30 different things that we could potentially go over.
Yeah, probably 50.
50?
Yeah, we actually had a guy reach out to us last 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, I love the content. Of course, he knew our dad. But I think we had joked about last episode. I can't remember which episode it was at this point, but we said we may have 50. He goes,
Bring them all.
Bring them all. I'm in for all 50. Let's go.
We may have to change the podcast name to Things My Dad Taught Me or something like that.
Maybe it gets more views.
You never know. So Benji, jump in a little bit. Share what the phrase is, and then give a little bit of context on why it was something that your dad used so much and how you are using it today.
Yeah. So we call this one, don't tell me about the labor, just show me the baby. Obviously, for moms that may be listening that's out there, we know exactly what this might mean to you. But it was true. You know, I remember, I'll give you a case in point. Mackenzie, when she was born, she was in the hospital. Or excuse me, Sarah was in the hospital for 27, I think, or 28 hours in labor for Mackenzie to be born. And it with this specifically in business or whatever, you know how you have an employee meeting, right? Mm-hmm. And employee starts talking, and you're like, just tell me what we're gonna do. Like, just, you don't have to tell me all the details of how we're gonna get there.
It's like 90% of my meetings I have with
Brady. It's like some pastors in church. They drag out a message for so long. I get it. You gotta fill time sometimes, but at the end of the day, just tell me what we got to do to resolve it. Tell me what we got to do to make it better. And there's 27 ways to get there. I don't think people really care how we get there. I know we don't. Let's just, if we're going to get to the same end goal, you may do it different than I do it, but just get there. So that's what it means. Don't tell me about the labor. Show me the baby.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit why this was important to cover to you guys. I mean, you shared obviously a little bit about that, but what are some things that you guys feel like is important about this, specifically as your role as leaders, owners, somebody in a management role? Share a little bit about that context.
Yeah, I think for me it resonated a lot because, in our young leadership journey and asking these questions, I mean, we thought the smartest man on the planet, which, I mean, he was our dad, and he was, mentor, hero, all those different things. But as we're learning certain things, then I think he never said this, but I think that sometimes he might have got tired of like telling us the same things over and over and over again. Like, I've already taught you that. And so this was his way.
He would call it lip service, Brady.
There you go.
It's not only if you feel like when you tell your kids the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. But it was also
a very good analogy.
But I think at the same time, okay, and I think this is important as leaders, and maybe, and I'm going to just go on the confession stand here a minute, but I think as leaders, what we probably don't say enough, and so Adam, I'll tell you in the room, but we're live on camera, but I think what we're trying to say is, hey, we trust you.
Yeah.
We trust you. Like, you're trying to validate, or people are trying to validate what they're doing or why they're doing it. And sometimes depending on the type of meeting that you're in, it could be a brainstorming meeting or something else like that. But if we already, like, I've given you this project, I trust you with that project, you're the expert in the field. Mm-hmm. And so now I want to be kept up to date on the progress.
Yeah.
Like where we're at. Our dad never said this, but I've heard it say a different way. Like, I don't necessarily want to know how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to eat it.
Yeah.
You know, but
Could have said hamburger.
hamburger. You know,
Sausage,
but
Kaneka sausage.
but you think about the process is kind of
Yeah.
nasty, right? But you know the process, and whoever out there, people that work for you. So I think it's a trust thing. There's sometimes that, and again, for us as CEOs or people in leadership, there's a lot that goes on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a yearly basis. You know, for us leaders, we're having to think of not just in the moment and in that meeting, but we're having to think of 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead, 3 years ahead, 10 years ahead. And so there's only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
You know, there was only one guy that I knew that could get 25 hours out of a day instead of 24 hours, and it was because he drank like 3 or 4 Red Bulls every day. You know, but
For his heart, in the red zone.
Wow.
But I think that's the crux of it, is there's a lot of things that are happening, and if we've gotten to a certain place, it's like, hey, I trust you. You know what you're doing. Like just give me the plan, give me the results, but not all the behind the scenes stuff. And it's all in context. There are sometimes we need to know that information, but I think that's the heart of this, and what he was trying to teach us is, hey, because you would see him get this look on his face, right? And he would go, "Don't tell me about the labor. Just show me the baby."
I've seen that look
There
so
was-
many times. So you have inherited it from your dad.
There was a lot of times too that, someone would try to walk him through something that went wrong, and he would just give that face. He'd stop him with the line. He wasn't trying to shut people down. He was just trying to shift the conversation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, effort drives outcome. We understand that, but you don't have to put all that effort in to get the outcome you want. There's ways you can do it different.
Yeah.
Try to change the story, move it to an actual scoreboard. How do we win the game? At the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do.
I think that's an important point too, Benji, because what he taught us in those moments was you're going to make mistakes.
Oh, yeah.
Things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So when he was saying in those moments, like, don't tell me about the labor, just show me the baby, showed up in so many different areas. But when you make a mistake, he would always say, okay, great. What do we learn from it? What are we going to do different?
Yeah.
Now let's go do it.
Yeah.
We had that same conversation with the girl that works for me, kind of handling social media and stuff. I tell her all the time, I said, hey, it is a little different working at a church. I was like, hey, I would rather you mess up here and learn from whether it's things that work, things that don't work. I said, because I want you to learn from it and grow. I don't want you to make this mistake because she has her own business. I said, I don't want you to make a mistake with a client. You make a mistake with a client, you may not get that second chance. And so I tell that all the time. I'm like, hey, all right, we tried this, didn't work. Let's refocus. Remember next time what needs to work. It's trial and error.
So here's one for you. I like to call this the effort trap. Okay. So we had an employee, Brady will know exactly what I'm talking about when I mention this, but this employee worked 29 hours a day and never got anything accomplished. Okay.
That's bad time management.
It's very much. But what would happen?
Several people.
What would happen is during the hours of 7:30 and 5, that person would spend more time going to talk to other employees and sit down with them and have conversations that have zero to do with what we're trying to accomplish. And then they would start working at 5:01 p.m. when everybody else left. They never went home. They were, call it a workaholic, call it whatever you want. And they're just trying to be in meetings all day, meeting. We actually have a thing recently where Brady talked about this on a podcast a few episodes ago that we want to get more done. We do have to have meetings. Meetings are important, but we don't have to meeting ourselves on a calendar to death.
Yeah.
We can accomplish the same goal, give people time to do what they need to do. So you don't have to put all that labor into it. Just show us the result. Like we get to the results. If you need a plan to help you get to the results, we can help you with that, right? We can help determine that. But you don't have to go like spend hours and hours and hours, especially in this world of AI today. We all know that. You can get there.
Yeah. We always say in the church, we say too many meetings is talk without action.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
constantly having conversations.
Well, how many times do you talk about the same topics over and over and over, and nothing gets accomplished?
Yeah.
So
it's
it's
got.
what are we doing about it?
It's got to have something quick and in action. But that's one thing I've respected about you, the two of you, a lot is when we have those conversations. We know once an idea is said, you maybe got a day to get it in action. And so it gets rolling quick. And then if one of the two of you starts doing it, you're already in trouble. So that's one of the things I've always said is we never want to get to the point where they do it. We do the same thing with our pastor. We're like, if he has to message us about being too much haze in the room, we've already messed up.
Yeah.
Like we need to be ahead of that before he senses it. So
yeah. Plus, you don't want to distract him from what he needs to do, right?
He needs to get ready. And the same thing with the two of you. If you're having to pull your focus away from it, because I think as an employee, somebody in my position, I think it's important that we remind ourselves and think through what our leaders have to do. I used to think a lot, I'm like, well, our pastors aren't here all the time. What are they doing? You don't know the things they do on the weekend. How many weddings they have to be?
Oh, yeah.
Like how many
counseling? Yeah, it's about to say.
Counseling sessions they do. Like
how many phone calls do they get at night?
Calls, lunches, things like that. We used to talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
At the church you've been used, like we don't think, and it's not something is always on the front of your mind. We don't think about the same thing that like what the two of you have to do. How many phone calls you're fielding? Because you're not just putting out fires, you're also having to push the business forward that you may never see. And so you have to be reminded of those things. Remember us as employees that say, all right, this is what I was brought in to do. I need to handle this because they've got other things they're handling if I want to continue doing what I do.
Yeah, and I will tell you, to add to that, we have a lot of great employees that work for us, a lot of them. And there's a lot of things that they do that we probably don't even know about, the labor, let's call it.
Okay.
But they show the results of the baby. Like that's what we're looking to accomplish.
Yeah.
So what does results-driven leadership actually look like? You can talk about this all the time. Labor. People are trying to buy time before you actually hit the real conversation. No, stop. Like, what's the point? What are we trying to accomplish? But what does results-driven leadership actually look like? Set the scoreboard before the game even starts. If people don't have a scoreboard to shoot for, they don't even know where they're trying to get to. They believe they are trying to value themselves to do, and they're not actually knowing what the end game is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So we have to set that as the leadership team for them to be successful.
Well, and as an employee, you start putting things on your scoreboard that you may think are important, but they're not important to the end outcome or the vision that you're trying, or the goal that's trying to be achieved. You just think, hey, this is what I see as important, but it may not be what the overall picture that your leadership team has.
Yeah, and to your point,
that's a great point.
If you're an employee listening, let's say you're trying to strive to move up the ladder in your company or whatever, exactly what you said. You do need to ask, what is it I need to accomplish to bring the value that you need to accomplish the end goal? What are we trying to get to?
But that also comes back to, we got to point the sales.
Yep,
absolutely. Back to the leader is, are we there's a so we talk about Patrick Lencioni a lot, and one of the things that he talks about is something called organizational clarity.
Yep.
So if we as leaders don't give enough clarity, it's a both end. Yes, the employee can, they should be working on things that are moving or driving towards these strategic objectives, right? But what if the organization is not clear on what the strategic objectives are? Then if they don't ask and they're just working on things that they think are important, but we as leaders have to make sure that we are constantly communicating that. I mean, I know we've talked about this before on the show, but each and every one of us as leaders, even though we may be CEO, CFO, CS, you got the C-suite, but we're also the CRO. We are the chief reminding officer.
Yeah.
We are the ones that are constantly, usually like with our team, I usually phrase it like this: what drum are you beating?
Yep.
It's beating the drum. So whatever those objectives and initiatives are, I was in 3 meetings last week. I shared our top 2 objectives for the year, our rally cry, and our strategic theme. So I'll be in another one on Friday, and I'm going to share our 2 top objectives and our rally cry and our strategic theme. So it's the same messages and presenting the scoreboard and how are we doing that.
Yeah.
That's when we provide organizational clarity, then this comes at back to, okay, now whatever you're working on. So sometimes, don't tell me about the labor, just show me the baby is, hey, Adam, you're probably working on the wrong stuff.
Yeah,
it could be. Absolutely. Here's a couple of things just from a leadership, what it actually looks like. What does results-driven leadership look like? You do need to celebrate the progress. Thank them for what they did, but measure the completion of what got accomplished. Ask them, what did we actually produce, and not just what did we try? Because it doesn't matter how many things you tried. If you got the result, that's what matters, right? Make every effort visible, but make outcomes the non-negotiable. That has to be exactly what we measure. And then, last but not least, extend grace to people, but hold the line on the standards. We call that accountability. Yeah, right. It matters.
And just to that point, I think there was one thing that Dad didn't have back then. Working Genius was not invented back then. Okay, so had he known about Working Genius, I think he probably would have been all over it. Number one. But if this is your first time hearing about Working Genius, then go to the website, get the book, study it. But there are some times that you'll be having a conversation with somebody that has the genius of wonder. Well, they like to ponder the big ideas, so that's where grace can come in. That's honestly where I struggle a little bit is listening to some of those, but I need to have grace for those sitting in front of me that have that genius, because if you don't have that common language to use, then you may just get annoyed with the other person because
tune them out.
That's right. But that's the way God made them.
Yeah.
And so now that you have that common language, you can have grace. And sometimes, I'll just say, hey, I understand why you're coming from that aspect and why you're asking those questions. Not really the meeting for that. We can do that at another time. But for right now, we got to get to the task at hand.
Yeah. I think it's important to have that clarity and set those expectations. And then how you present it to your team. A week ago, you were speaking to our reconstruction team, and you went through all this. You shared all the vision, our mission, how we do everything. But then you took that and related it. You made a comment about, hey, right now, there's a family sitting in a hotel that's wondering if things are going to be put back together. And it's not, it sounds like.
That 100%. You come up with that? That was solid. Hey, I did, maybe, I'm sure. But it doesn't matter.
You never know.
That was solid. I saw that on social. I was like, that's
solid.
good.
We shared that, and we actually had a few people comment like, hey.
I was going to say, I actually had a couple other leaders text me and was like, I'm stealing your brother's.
Somebody literally commented on the post on LinkedIn. They were like, I'm 100% plagiarizing what he said. And so, but see, that's what I meant by clarity, is that while you went through and shared the mission, the vision, you found a way to relate to the team and people that aren't even on our team to say that at the end of the day, that's what, like, it never even happened means.
Yeah.
That's the point of the tagline. It's not just a gimmick. It's not just something that we have that looks pretty on a graphic. Like, this is who we're supposed to be as a restoration company. And this is who we are as Team Wilson. Like, this is what we need to do.
So the other day I was, on Monday, we had a new group of recruits that came in, and I always do like an hour, an orientation, share mission, vision, values, all that stuff. Well, I had that slide up at the very end on the presentation, and our HR coordinator, she started getting teary. Like she said, "Brady, you're gonna make me cry."
Culture.
Yeah.
So here's a couple things, just a couple biblical scriptures to help you with this, because. And before I say that, do you guys eat bananas?
Yes.
Okay. Do you really care how the banana's made? Do you care how
it on a tree?
I know, but do you really care?
I do not how some people do. They just eat the banana without peeling it.
Oh, that's nasty.
Ooh. That's weird.
That's nasty.
Yeah.
So my point is, you don't really care how the banana came to fruition, right? Yeah. You care about what it tastes like, and you like bananas. So a couple verses here. Matthew 7:20, by their fruit you will recognize them, their efforts. James 2:26, faith without works is dead. You do have to have the labor to have the baby, but you don't have to show everything that you need for that labor to have the baby. Lastly, John 15:2, every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes it so that it'll be even more fruitful. So there are times that we learn through that adversity of what we're trying to get accomplished. Yeah. And there may be, like Brady said, we're going to have situations come up that are not going to work out exactly like we have. But if you take an NFL team, for example, they have a playbook, they have a plan, they have a strategy. All 53 or 52, whatever it is, teammates on that team are striving to the same goal, right? They want to win a Super Bowl. And those guys put in a lot of work in the offseason and all that. We we never see that work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What we see is what they actually do on the field, and we're yelling at the TV going, and them guys can't catch a pass. They make $10 million a year. But you don't understand how hard it is at that level.
Yeah.
So they've put in all that work ahead of time to get to that point. And, you know, yeah, we don't care about the labor. We just care about watching the game on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, just from a leadership perspective, you know, how do we build a show me the baby culture? Okay. Just a couple things to think about here. Obviously, we talked about define what the baby looks like before the labor starts. Give us the scoreboard. What does the scoreboard look like? Be crystal clear on what success looks like. Because if you don't provide that clarity, like Brady was saying, people don't know where to shoot for. Review the outcomes, not the activities. We had a situation it's been within the last 18 months that we have changed our, you know, we used to focus on got to do this, got to do that, got to do this, got to do that, got to do this. People call it box checking, right? You're creating so many boxes for me to check that I can't even focus on what I need to focus on. So we've eliminated that noise. We do have some episodes out there, signal versus noise. It's a two-parter. You might want to go check that one out. But reward the result in you know, not just the story itself, what happened. In one-on-ones, ask what got completed and not just what got worked on. He talked about top 2 objectives. We're focusing on these 2 things. Doesn't mean you're going to have other things that come up and got to be done, because emergencies do happen, right? If someone's in the hospital to have a baby and there's an emergency coming in, they got to figure out how to accomplish both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you got to think about that. Celebrate deliverables publicly, coach through the process privately. It's important. I think a lot of leaders, we have been there too. Our dad was like this a while, and then he changed. He was like, I can't criticize in public because I need to praise in public, criticize behind closed doors.
Sure.
Very important. Kill meetings that only produce more meetings. I mean, think about this. We talked about this a minute ago. How many times are you sitting in a room with someone and you're just over and over and over? We look up and go, are we ever going to accomplish that? If not, take it off the list. Let's move on to something that's going to be more productive, because here's a real question. This just came to my mind. Have you ever done an analysis sitting around a room in your leadership team? And I know some of you out there listening, watching may not actually have leadership meetings. We encourage you to start that at some point, but you have to put a time limit on it.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Do the math at the people around your table at how much money you're spending in that meeting.
Yeah, that's good.
Because they are productive. They have to be productive, but you got to do that. So my point is, kill meetings that don't produce, that are producing other meetings to happen.
Yeah.
Not effective. If a meeting doesn't move a deliverable, it's part of the labor problem. We got to go have I don't like side committees, my honest opinion, but you may have to have a conversation with people behind closed doors and say, we got to solve this before we even get in there and have a plan what we're going to do to get to the end goal.
Yeah.
Model it yourself. If you can't model it yourself, your people are never going to catch on. Leaders who ramble about their own effort give their team permission to do the exact same. Guilty as charged here. So I got to get better at that.
Yeah.
But anyway, just a couple of things that you might want to consider as you're building your leadership.
I think something to add in there to that too, for somebody that's listening that may not be in a leadership role, that's support staff, like where I'm at. And I say that coming from that position, I think it's important as support staff to remember that there is something that needs to be done. There's a project that needs to be completed, and not everybody's concerned, and not as a negative, but they're not concerned on how it gets done.
Yeah.
We did headshots on Monday night. Like, and I know you care about the process, Benji, but you were like, hey, I have to have these by Monday night. Can you get it? So I made sure to have that done because you need to have it. We're doing the same thing right now. We're getting ready to prep for 21 days of prayer at the church. We're going to do where every single day. We did it in January. It went super well with the church, but we get everybody that sends a devotion, which is something that you had put together when we did it at the church. So we do that, but we also send it in Spanish. We send it in English because we have a very large Hispanic community at our church. But at the end of the day, like, it's a lot of work.
Oh yeah,
it's a lot of work to reach out to, because each of our pastors do it. So we have 19 different devotions we got to get. Each devotion has a theme, a scripture, and we want to fit that so it goes with the day for the prayer guide. At the end of the day, our pastor doesn't care about all the work I have to do. And again, I'm not saying that as a negative.
Yeah, right.
He's not innate with that. He doesn't care about all the emails I have to send, all that. Just the end result that creates the experience and the spiritual connection for our church. We got to get that done. So just anybody that's listening that's in support staff, remember that. Sometimes being in our position and I'm a words of affirmation person. I mean, I act like it, but
Adam, you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Thanks for throwing
I was
that out
actually about to say
there.
something.
He said something the other night, and I was like, oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. So, but just remember, being in this position, this is something actually being in the church has taught me. It is a thankless job when we do.
Yeah.
But anybody that's listening that's the support staff role, remember that you have things that have to get done, and not everybody's going to see the labor pains.
Yep.
But they do get to see the baby at the end, and that's where your fruit comes from.
Yeah.
Remind yourself that you may not see the work inside. It's the same thing you said being a player in the NFL that nobody ever sees. It's like Joe Burrow used to talk about all these players that post all their workouts and what they're doing. They're out there doing this. He's like, why do I need to show you what I'm doing? You're going to see it on Sundays.
That's it. I love it.
There you go.
So
yeah, exactly right. And for you, again, if you are an employee or in a support staff listening or watching, take that what Adam said. But at the same time, if you do good work, people are going to, your leadership is going to notice it. They are going to notice it. And if they don't, you just keep the grind, keep doing what you do, because maybe the opportunity may not be at that company for you. It could be somewhere else for you.
Yep.
So as we close this up, just a couple of reflection things you might want to consider. Are you leading with the labor, or are we delivering the baby? Where have you accepted effort as a substitute for the outcome? Again, you can have all the activities in the world, but if they don't drive the results that your team is looking for, why do we keep doing them?
yeah.
Something to ask yourself. What's the one result you need to actually finish this week? We talk about this all the time with our team. The hardest thing to do is the first one. If you don't do the first one, you can never get to the next one. So again, we thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Higher Up Podcast. You can like, subscribe, share this out there to the public. Someone else may need to hear. You can also go to higheruppodcast.com/subscribe. Subscribe to your favorite platform, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all those things. So again, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you tuning in. And as always, go out and choose to live a higher up life. We'll see you next time.